Hello, welcome back to the Fifth Star. I'm Jamie.
And I'm Albert.
And this podcast, Albert and I are trying to find our next 5-star rated movie. And when we can agree upon that, this podcast will go missing.
On this episode, we're reviewing Emilia Perez, which did really well at the Golden Globes recently, and it won 4 Golden Globes, including Best Picture, Musical Comedy, and also Best Foreign Film. So Emilia Perez is a musical about a drug cartel leader who is looking to leave the thug life behind and also transition to be a woman. So we both wrote down secretly what we gave this movie out of 5 stars, and we're going to guess what we think each other gave it. I'm going to guess that you gave it a 2.5.
Okay.
Even though you like musicals?
I'm going to guess you gave it a 3.5.
Okay. And we will reveal our scores after we give our initial thoughts about the movie, and then we'll get into the spoiler section of our review.
Yes.
So, all right. So, Jamie, what did you think about Emilia Perez?
So, first thing I'll say is that it is unlike any other movie that I've ever seen, I think. The style was so unique in terms of the way they would break out into song. It kind of felt like talking into singing. Like that transition was kind of smooth, and I've just never really seen that happen before. But then at the same time, the songs were very weirdly structured. And I guess because, like, I am a musical fan, I wasn't used to that, which I don't think it's a negative thing. That's not, like, a point of negativity. That's just, like, an observation I had.
Okay.
Where the songs weren't, like, verse, chorus, verse, bridge, verse. It was very much just we're singing what we're saying.
Yeah.
Kind of.
There were parts where it just seemed like the dialogue was turned into kind of a little tune.
Kind of like a poem,
and they would speak what they're feeling.
Yes.
And then it'll just cut to the next scene.
Yes.
Yeah.
The one thing I could think to compare it to was the Umbrellas of Sharonberg. That really old French movie where they're just like basically singing their dialogue the whole time.
Well, this is a French film.
Oh, okay.
It was done by Emilia Perez is done by a French filmmaker.
But that being said,
it does take place in Mexico, though. Yeah.
Is not anything like that movie.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say that, but it's just like the way that they chose to weave the songs into the dialogue and narrative was super unique and interesting.
Okay. And did you like it? Did you feel like it kind of worked ultimately? And
I did like it. There were a few songs that I was kind of like, I didn't super love, but I really liked that first song, In the Street of Mexico.
Yeah.
That was really cool with all the dancing.
Yeah.
And the lighting changes were really cool.
So I knew nothing about this movie going in.
Yeah.
Like I always tried. That's my goal always. And so I turned it on and I'm starting to watch. It's following Zoe Saldana. And then all of a sudden that scene when she's in the street and just starts singing to camera and people, like the whole parade in the background is starting to dance choreography. And I was like, oh, okay, we're watching a musical. I was not expecting that.
You didn't even know it was a musical?
No, I did.
But it was nominated for a musical or
Well,
comedy.
I watched this like a month ago before the Golden Globes nominations came out. And so and I thought maybe it could be a comedy. I don't know I guess I saw that category. So I was pleasantly surprised by the fact that this was going to be a musical. And so I was like, okay, let's see where this goes. And then it started getting into this like drug cartel type thing.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I don't know that I've ever seen a musical with drug cartel like leaders. And so then I was actually even more intrigued.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the drug cartel leader is saying that he wants to become a she, right? Transition to a woman. And then I was really confused. Like, oh, I did not see that coming. But I was thinking, okay, well, this is definitely going to be unique.
Yeah.
And I thought, points for creativity, I guess.
Super original.
Yeah, super original. So let's see where this goes. And then I just thought it did not work. The musical
elements
of it. There were songs where I feel like, and we've talked about this in the past, where musicals should progress the story or at least tell us what the character's thinking, right? That's what you like to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
And I find that helpful. And there was a part in the beginning where Zoe Saldana is initially kind of called to, hey, show up here and meet, someone's got to meet you. And you would think, like, why would she ever go and do that? But
Yeah.
she sings kind of what she's thinking. And so
Yeah.
it kind of worked. I was like, okay, that kind of works. But then as the whole sex change operation, looking for the doctors and all that kind of stuff is happening, it's just like song after song. And there was one song where it suddenly feels like we're in the middle of a Disney musical.
Which song was that?
It was when they go to see the
Oh my
doctor in
gosh.
Bangkok, and they're like moving all the stretchers around and twirling them around, and I was like, "What is going on here?"
That was definitely the most out of place song in the whole thing.
Yeah, and then so each of the songs I thought were kind of hit or miss in terms of if they were. A lot of them felt completely pointless, and so I overall did not like this movie.
Oh, okay, I was way
Yeah.
off then. It was so hard for me to guess because I was like, there's so much originality, and
Which
you do
I
love
appreciate that,
originality.
yeah.
But at the same time, I could see how, like, ultimately, well, I don't want to say because it's getting into spoilers.
Yeah, we'll
save that for
some
later.
of that for
but
spoilers. Yeah,
yeah, the way the plot headed, I was like, oh, maybe he'd like it, maybe he'd hate it. It's so hard for me to tell, but
yeah.
okay.
There are definitely some issues with the plot.
Yeah,
There
the
are
structure anyway.
Yeah, you're kind of following a certain thread, and maybe even a certain protagonist, and then it just becomes almost a totally different story, different movie.
Yeah.
Following a different protagonist.
Yeah.
And then it kind of changes again. So almost each act feels like a separate episode.
A little disconnected. Yeah.
Yeah, and
I would
doesn't
agree.
really connect that
agree.
much. But
I think the acting was very good though. I
Yeah.
thought Zoe Saldana did a really good job. Even though I agree with you, her character motivation was kind of confusing for me.
Mhm.
I couldn't tell exactly what page she was on at certain beats in the plot.
Yeah.
But her acting, I mean, she's just always so good.
She
Like,
is-
every time I see her in anything, I'm like, wow.
Yeah, all three leads have gotten a lot of acclaim at Cannes. They won an ensemble award. So, and at the Golden Globes, Zoe Saldana won for her category.
Yeah.
So I did think they were fairly good performances. There were some scenes where I really thought, Sofia Gascon and Zoe Saldana, they worked really well together. It gave a good performance together in that scene. But ultimately, I thought Zoe Saldana, she felt kind of like she didn't matter in the story. And that's why her performance didn't really hit home for me as much. Like, it didn't really seem to have a lot of weight because for a lot of the movie, I felt like
She kind of became background in the middle. That's true.
Yeah.
But in the beginning and the end, she's pretty important. It's just, I definitely thought she was supposed to be the main character.
Yeah.
But she's not.
She's not really. We'll talk more about it in spoilers, but I think there is a better version of this movie where she's just her character, not her performance. Her character is not a part of the story at all. And it really is Carla's movie from beginning to end. Now, Carla, I thought she did fairly good throughout, but I did think scene to scene, sometimes it was not always that consistent. Like, some scenes she was better than in other scenes. And then Selena Gomez, she had some good scenes and some moments too, but yeah, overall, was it mind-blowing or fantastically great? I don't know.
Yeah, I thought Selena Gomez, like, she did a good job.
Yeah.
Considering I've seen her in other things where she's sort of, So I thought she did good compared to, like, other performances I've seen. But yeah, I would agree. I think, like, out of the three, she was probably the weakest.
Yeah. But that might be because she didn't have as much dialogue, as many
That's
scenes.
true. She didn't have as much.
Yeah. Like,
to work with. But she still did good, I thought.
She did, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought she still did good. The most kind of compelling parts of the movie involve her character and her giving a good performance, I thought.
Yeah.
Like, she really does bring a lot of the tension to the story.
True.
And so, yeah, without her, the movie would have really been almost unwatchable for me. The performances overall, I think were solid.
Yeah.
But the biggest issue I had with this movie was not really the musical part of it, because there were, the songs did kind of add something unique to the
It was
overall
creative.
story of the
Yeah.
movie. Yeah. So I did enjoy parts of that. But ultimately the main problem I had was with the Emilia Perez character. So not so much the performance, but the character I think is too flawed. And we need to go talk about that in spoilers.
Yeah.
So we'll unpack that, but why don't we see how we did with our guesses and what we actually gave it? I feel like we both might be really off.
I think so.
Yeah, so you guessed I would give it a 3.5. I
Yeah.
actually gave it a 2.0. Yeah.
That's like your lowest score.
I mean 2.0 to 2.5.
That's like as low as you go.
Yeah, 2.0 to 2.5, but I think there were just too many issues I had that I ended up at a 2.0.
Okay. I gave it a 3.0.
Okay. I actually was kind of guessing maybe you might give it a 3.0, but
I think I just was so torn by a lot of elements that I just landed in the middle.
Yeah, this is at a 5.0. Okay, so you were kind of mixed. I genuinely did not really like this movie.
Okay.
And so even with you being mixed, I got to ask, this one in the best picture of musical or comedy over movies like Wicked, Challengers, and The Substance.
Yeah.
Now, I have not seen Anora.
I have not seen Substance.
Yeah. But I thought The Substance, the parts of it that worked were really amazing, even better than when Emilia Perez was working on his best levels. So I liked The Substance more than this movie.
Well, obviously I like Dune 2 more, so.
Yeah, but even Wicked, you loved Wicked, right? As a musical.
Yeah, I don't know if it's best picture worthy, but I liked it a lot.
Yeah, and I liked Wicked more than this movie. And Challengers, which you haven't seen, but I saw, and I thought Challengers was by far a much more superior movie than Emilia Perez. So to me,
I'll be honest too. Like when I finished it, I was kind of shocked that it was nominated for so much stuff.
Yeah,
in Golden Globes anyway.
In the Globes history, it was the second most nominated movie.
I was kind of shocked by that. Yeah,
and it's the first non-English movie to win a Best Picture category in at least musical and comedy.
Oh, for Golden Globes.
Yeah, for the Globes. So it's like kind of breaking all these records.
I mean, I thought it was super creative, original. A lot of the musical elements were really cool. So all of that stylistically, I was like, okay, I get those categories, but overall, I kind of agree with you. The plot was just is a touch messy, and the character arcs were a touch messy. I mean, now that we're in spoilers, it didn't have like a great ending or a satisfying ending, I thought.
Yeah. So I thought the main problem I had with this movie was that the Emilia Perez character is essentially just lying to her kids while she's staying with them. And one of those songs that really, just kind of ruined the movie for me, in terms of pointing that out, was when the son is singing "You Smell Like Papa" to her.
That song was my favorite song though.
Yeah.
In the whole thing.
Yeah, which I agree. And it was really heartbreaking.
It was so poetically written too. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it was so heartbreaking, but it just made me really hate her character. Because she's sitting there listening to that and still not saying, "Oh, I am
your papa." Yeah.
Yeah, and I understand there's kind of a plot device about she's in hiding from her past life.
Yeah.
She puts her family in danger by the truth getting out. But you could, I don't know, tell them the truth and tell them this is why you can't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Or something. But to just live in that deceit, it made her such an unsympathetic character. And then when she then goes on to, have this conflict with Jessie, the Selena Gomez character, she's somebody who has kind of transitioned to not only has she transitioned into a new life, and left her old life behind, but she's not willing to let her wife kind of move on and have like this new love.
Yeah.
Right. So she's gonna, out of jealousy, she goes and threatens that lover.
Yeah.
And then kind of takes the money. Does she take their money? I think too.
No, I think it's what she gives him money.
Oh, okay, to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then but freezes Jesse's bank account, and then so now Jesse's basically trapped and can't live like a life having lost in her mind her former husband. And so it's just a very selfish thing for Emilia Perez to do.
Yeah.
And then so when she then gets kidnapped and then all this stuff happens, I don't feel bad for her. I'm like, you brought this upon yourself. You know? And then on top of all of that, she's being really pushed by the movie as some kind of hero and some symbolic, so there's this whole tangent about she starts this NGO, finding the missing persons, and it's all meant to be like this is a redemptive character from all her, the sins of her past.
She's trying to undo the bad stuff without taking any of the consequences.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then she wants kind of her cake and eat it too, but then at the end, when this whole tribute is being sung to her, in my mind, it's like, you don't deserve it. Like people don't know the truth about you.
Yeah.
You are
people don't know how many people you killed.
Yeah, you're a killer, but okay, fine. She's tried to redeem some of that, but you're living this lie, lying to your kids to their face, being possessive over your ex-wife.
And I was frustrated because at the end when she finally reveals to the ex-wife like who she really is.
Yeah.
Then they all die.
Yeah.
And I was so frustrated by that.
And then there's kind of this moment of understanding.
I was like, okay, I thought, Jesse's going to convince her new lover or whatever to like spare her. But no, they just all die. And I was just kind of like, what was the point of all that?
Yeah, because I guess she like remembers and rekindles her affection for her husband.
I guess. I was very unsatisfied by that ending.
Yeah, and then ends up trying to stop her lover by killing, like trying to drive the car into their death. Yeah.
I felt like, why did we just go through all that whole journey? And maybe I missed something huge. Maybe there's a huge poetic meaning or like thread in the plot that I completely missed, which is possible because I was reading subtitles. I don't know. Maybe there's some like cultural subtext I missed. Well, if you know, write it in the comments, actually.
Yeah. I think the movie made kind of a misstep of assuming that we were just going to want to root for this character purely maybe on the basis of the fact that, it's a trans woman, that's something that we want to be sympathetic towards. And so based on that, regardless of past sins, current sins, we're just going to forgive all of that because now there's some redemption and trying to find missing peoples that a lot of whom she put in the ground.
Yeah.
Like it just assumed too much that there would be too much goodwill, I think.
Yeah.
And for me, I could not give that goodwill because this character was just so deeply flawed.
Yeah.
That the whole ending was just, I could care less.
Well, and I was reading about like some controversies. So there was like controversies from a lot of the communities represented in this movie. And one of the communities was the Mexican community itself. Oh, okay. They were offended apparently by some of the portrayals and the fact that like most of the actresses are not Mexican. I was also reading how they weren't even casting some extras as Mexicans, which is really strange. Yeah, and then I guess some of the portrayals were offensive to them. Like they weren't portraying their culture accurately or something like that. And the fact that it's a French movie, it just was a little strange. So I think a lot of their community was offended by that. Yeah, so there was a lot of like missteps that were kind of taken in this movie, I think.
Yeah. And then I think on top of the kind of character flaw of Emilia Perez, plot-wise, I thought we kind of alluded to this, but in the beginning, it really is the first act is really Zoe Saldana's movie.
Yeah,
she's kind of put in this situation that's really tricky. She's trying to navigate. Her life is kind of on the line, but if she gets the sex change done, then she's going to be really rich. But through that, she forms this friendship. But once the sex change happens, it really becomes Emilia Perez's movie.
Yeah.
And Zoe Saldana is just her secretary, basically.
She's like this servant.
Yeah,
kind of.
who's just like there.
Yeah.
And throughout like the whole middle part of the movie.
And she like wants to go back to London, but then she's like, no,
Zoe
you have to stay.
Yeah.
It's like strange.
And so that whole part of it, and then the NGO thing, and even the Emilia Perez, there's no real kind of conflict. She's just trying to adjust to this new life, and then starts this NGO that drags out for a really long time. And it's not really until all the family dramas of her and Jesse with the kids and Jesse wanting to leave with them does the conflict really show up.
Yeah.
So it's not the last act is the only part that's really any kind of plot or drama or tension, I feel like. And so I thought this movie really would have worked better if Zoe Saldana's character wasn't in it at all. Because Emilia Perez, before she transitions, is a drug lord wanting to transition. Why does she need to hire a lawyer to do this? Like, I think he should have been kidnapping, like these sex change doctors.
No, I think you do have to convince someone in a way, like it has to be someone you can trust, and it can't be a fear-based thing. Otherwise, they could just kill you during surgery. Like that's
when there are a bunch of your goons like with guns to your head. I mean, if you die on the operating table, like you will die, you will be killed. And what incentive?
I guess that's true.
And what incentive does a doctor have to kill the patient? Like you're gonna get given all this money. You just need to do the operation that you always do, and then just keep it a secret. Like,
I guess so, but then again, that would make it even more like the main character even more unsympathetic. If they did it that way.
But I think you do that, and then it becomes a story about, or maybe you don't get into how the sex change is done, right? But it really make it about Emilia Perez trying to live this new life, but not being able to let go of missing the kids, and how do I live in light of kind of this new identity, and have it really be an honest portrayal of what this character is going through.
Yeah.
And then really let the drama, like forget the whole NGO redemption. We don't need this kind of hero being painted. Like just be honest about what that experience is like as a trans woman. And then the conflict with your past life and your family and that Jesse kind of tension. Because then I think Emilia Perez should have come out to Jesse and the kids, and then Jesse becomes the antagonist who then goes, no, like, I'm going to move on with my life. I'm going to take the kids. And then there's this conflict, but at least it's honest and we can be sympathetic towards Emilia Perez. So that's the movie I think could have maybe got me on board with the character and what this story was trying to do and still have the musical elements. Then I wouldn't mind it as much. But yeah, I thought the plot and the character was just way too flawed that, couldn't root for her.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I would agree with you. I think I would have enjoyed that movie more. It would have had a more satisfying ending, at least.
Okay. Yeah, maybe the ending was unsatisfying because you didn't know what to feel for the characters.
Yeah, you're kind of like, oh, okay, they're all dead now.
Yeah.
Moving on. Like, what?
Yeah. I think I'll just say, the fact that this movie won the majority of the big awards at the Globes, which isn't always a good indicator, but it can be. And The Brutalist being the other movie in the drama section that took home the big awards. If The Brutalist and Emilia Perez are really the front runners for Oscar Best Picture, I haven't seen The Brutalist. Neither have you, right? But without even having seen that movie, I would just be really disappointed if Emilia Perez is the one that becomes Best Picture this year at the Oscars. I would just think The Brutalist is the one that should get it. Even without that, having seen a lot of the other movies, Conclave, even Wicked, I'm down for that. Dune. So many of these other movies I feel like should really deserve it more than Emilia Perez.
Yeah.
Now, I do see Emilia Perez potentially still taking home Best Foreign Film because it's still up for foreign film. But if it does what it did at the Globes, like wins both those categories, I don't know.
I think I'm Still Here is going to win Best International. I haven't seen it yet, but I just have a gut feeling.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, those are our thoughts about Emilia Perez.
Yeah.
Let us know what you thought.
Let us know if we missed something.
Yeah, especially if we're missing something here. Like, subscribe, follow. Every week we try to find another movie that we really can fall in love with.
Yeah.
And ultimately, we're looking for this 5-star movie. So next week, we're going to review season 2 of Silo.
Yes.
And so if you get a chance, watch that and join us next week on The Fifth Star.